Hello, this is Devin, and I am about to discuss some of the common misconceptions with Article 17, previously known as Article 13. A lot has been updated in this law due to public backlash as a result of this law being introduced, and now the public perception of what this law is doesn't match what the law actually is. So I have pulled Twitch chat and come up with some of the top concerns that people have about Article 17 and how this is now being addressed by what is in the article. And we're going to discuss that today. Infringement, even if nobody has told them to take it down. With DMCA, you're only liable after someone has told you to take it down. Pre-liability is what everyone is talking about. That is not true. Nowhere in this article does it say that the platform is liable for infringement before an authorization request has been submitted. That is completely and utterly false. There is nothing in here that says that. What it says is the platform is liable for not acquiescing a request made in Article 9 under the provisions of Article 4. What you are saying doesn't exist. How will this apply to sites with Twitter for memes? Serious question, lots of concerns. It shouldn't at all. There'll be absolutely no application to that for memes and stuff like that. That's a big, but that's a great question. And sorry for responding to your question. You should be. Good. How will this apply to sites like Twitter? So Corbash, it really won't apply at all. The last part is a little concerning. Acted expeditiously upon receiving a sufficiently substantiated notice from rights holders to disable access to or remove from their works and notified and made best effort to prevent their future uploads in accordance with the point. It suggests that they may be forced to implement filters to prevent content recently requested to be taken down or uploaded again. But they won't because this is a great point, Dark and Full of Chairs, but that is specifically what Article 8 actually addresses against, right? The application of this article shall not lead to any general monitoring obligation. So there won't be any general monitoring obligation for that, which I think was addressed in the video. What about small websites? Doesn't apply because of article number 6, right? Which says that if you are below 10 million, have been around for less than 3 years. Okay, so it seems like three of the big concerns. Number one, what about pre-liability, and how will Reddit? Okay, thank you, Yi. How will companies respond to being pre-liable even before? I think they specifically said that memes and short media GIFs are protected. Yeah, I think they did too. So the answer to this is A, it doesn't exist, and in the law, and B, Section 8 prevents general monitoring, which stops filters like this anyway. For memes, A, protected under comedy clause, and B, protected, I think, by short published works clause, right? Liability limitations shall not apply, and these limitations were about pre-liability, and they don't apply here. Did he mention Article 14? The fear is that protection under the comedy clause will be applied selectively due to very political nature of the EU. I personally think it is naive to take the EU's word in good faith. You may be right, but that is no different than it is in the United States right now, right? Where it's up to the individual member states to apply what is and what isn't. It's probably how it ought to be. What would be the alternative situation? The argument that opponents have made is that since the YouTube has content ID, for YouTube, best efforts means upload filters. But as you say, this wouldn't change anything. Right. You are right, and is it not being applied selectively in the U.S.? Yes, yeah, that's correct. So it'd just be the exact same as the U.S. system, which generally works. Why would the EU lie about this or mislead? It's not that Andrew didn't say they're lying or misleading, just that he's concerned that individual member states may choose to apply this law unreasonably, which is a completely legitimate concern, and that is something that is that could happen. I don't see anything here about the general monitoring part. Does that mean YouTube isn't allowed to use content ID in EU? I think so. I don't know. I think it means they can't use general monitoring in the application of this law. So my interpretation of that storm is yes. I do think that's probably the case, but I'm not sure. People are worried about upload filters for nothing. Yes, absolutely. But as a couple of people have mentioned correctly in chat, that is a recent change to this directive. The upload filters were apparently included in previous iterations of the directive and now were removed. I don't know if that's true, but I've heard that from several different people who are getting mad at me. It said that the law's application shall not lead to upload filters, but since they already exist, it won't lead to it, right? I don't know. That's a really tough one. Let's read it again. So it's the application of this article shall not lead to any general monitoring obligation. Shall not lead. I mean, so Shibo's interpretation of it sounds right, where existing content ID platforms may be fine, but it's a weird loophole, isn't it? Because if YouTube then applies its content ID filter to enact this article, to accomplish this directive, does that violate Section 8? And the answer to that is probably no, up to the interpretation of the member state. And I don't see why a member state would actually be like, hey, it's not cool for you to use content ID. So what about content ID filters? It says it shall not be an obligation. Yes, but not that you can't do it. You are not obliged to use any. That's the answer. So content ID is fine. Can still exist, but doesn't have to. Do we agree that that's probably... So the cause allows companies to use a filter, but does not stop them from having one. Literally nothing will change for end users. As far as I can tell, no. Yeah, absolutely nothing. You may at some point go to a stream and it says this is blocked in your country, but I can't see how that would happen. Yeah, okay, so Zenix says they would still need human review. Only the actual DMCA requests need human review. If YouTube chooses to implement an upload filter that prevents the content from being uploaded in the first place, that does not need human review. If that does get uploaded and then it is then flagged as a DMCA request, that does need human review. Does that make sense? There is nothing. Only the actual request. The Twitch channel that runs cartoons and anime is blocked here in Japan. Really? That already happens? Same day build. Okay, so what will change for end users? Nothing should change for end users. B, you might get a video is blocked in your country or a stream is blocked in your country for aggressive interpretations by individual countries, but probably not. One main concern I've heard that is it might make it harder for competition of large companies because they might not have the resources to do what the law requires them to do. Right. And that is addressed in Article 6, which says that smaller companies are basically exempt from these provisions. I don't think it's fair to compare what people thought about what was going to be passed before and what actually got passed in the end. I agree with that, Cariso. The thing is, though, that that onus is kind of on the people that were freaking out before something actually happened, right? Because this is what actually happened versus what didn't happen. The vast majority of people think that Article 17 is going to end the internet still, and it's just not going to do that. What does implementing Article 17 mean? Does that mean that the politician is going to come down to my stream and be like, hey, don't do that? Well, obviously it doesn't mean that. Does that mean that the politician is going to hire a team of people to do that? Probably not. Does that mean that the politicians are going to implement a division of people or a team of people that goes to content service platforms and says, hey, don't do this type of content, right? Again, the interpretation is up to the individual member state. What you will probably find is that most politicians have no idea how to even begin with doing anything as far as action, and that most likely for the vast majority of countries, nothing will happen. This directive, simply sets up that member states have the ability to determine what constitutes best effort for removing copyrighted content. That's all it means. Doesn't mean you can develop a Gestapo to tell you what's right and wrong. Doesn't mean that you can go to service providers and tell them what's right and wrong. It means that you can control as an individual member state what your interpretation of best practices are to prevent this content from existing on those platforms. Politicians are not responsible for policing things. Politicians are not responsible for knocking down people's doors or going to companies and saying, hey, you need to do it this way. They made an overarching directive that if the company, the member state chooses, can maybe create some kind of organization or, I don't know, like board or something that would maybe the companies would have to report to. But what I want you to start to think about is like, how difficult is this actually to implement? Like this world that a lot of people for Article 17 are imagining of like, we are going to have every piece of content policed. We are going to have every, like every single video and every single stream is going to be beholden to this. All of my memes on Twitter are going to be disallowed. What is the human element of the government that is actually going to do this? We're talking about the same countries that literally left the we're talking about a country like Britain, for example, that left the EU on accident and then doesn't know what to do and can't do anything as a result of it. Like the vast majority of government organizations on a macro level are so incompetent that they can't even fix their own countries or implement the most basic of things. And you mean to tell me that when I post a Squidward meme, that somebody from France is going to come and tell me I can't do that? Dog, you just need to look at the interpretation of these rules in a realistic fashion. It is never going to happen in that way. So this is just kind of a quick recap, clearing up a lot of misconceptions that I think are about Article 17. It's worth noting that in previous iterations of this law, I have heard that this used to be worded a lot worse, excuse me. So there was a lot worse interpretations of this law when it originally was introduced, before it actually became a directive. And a lot of that has been improved because of the public backlash as a result of that. This is good. But what happened now is that a lot of people don't understand that Article 17 has actually been cleaned up. It's really a pretty reasonable law that I don't think is going to cause a lot of problems for anybody. So let's just hope that that misconception is clear.
Walk, little walk, small talk, big thoughts. Gonna tell them all just what I want. That street, 2 streets, I see you and me hanging on the empty swings.